Hello, hello. For those of you that are just joining, my name is Krystal and I own the Dog Psychology and Training Center. My husband may or may not be joining me today. That's why there's a vacant seat here. So if any of you handsome gentlemen want to step in, just kidding. He might be up. We have group socials on first Thursdays of every month. So he's finishing up that and then he'll run upstairs and partake with our Facebook Live. So we do a weekly Facebook Live Q&A to answer questions that our families have presented to us. And it's not really our families because you may not have purchased training from us or worked with us before. But if you follow us, then we consider you ours. So if you have a question, we want to help you. This week we're doing something new. So let me know if it works. I've created a poll on the Facebook Live so that next week, a couple topics that we've heard coming up is fear-based, and that's what we're going to talk about today, fear-based behavior in dogs. But I created a poll. So what would you like to hear about next week? There's two choices. So pick one and that'll help us make a decision on what to talk about next week. So today we are going to be talking about fear behavior in dogs and how to not get bit by a fearful dog while you're trying to get them to like you. So this is inspired by a true story that happened just this past week or two of a family friend of ours whose son loves dogs, as any normal human should. And sorry, I just see a little error here that I'm going to try to fix. Here we go. All right. So where was I? Okay. So they were at a family friend's house or visiting a friend, and so it was a teenage boy. So he's very tall. He's got very broad shoulders. And he's got that deepening voice. So pretty intimidating male for dog standards. And the friend that he was visiting had a fearful dog, and he really wanted this dog to like him because he loves animals, right? Any sane person does. And so he really wanted this fearful dog to like him. And towards the end, he bent over to pet the dog or something, and the dog bit him in the face. So it got a puncture here in the nose, and then I think a little scratch on the chin. So it could have been much worse. Luckily, it was just that one little couple of scratches there. So, but a definite puncture wound. So obviously, we're happy he was safe. But we want to talk about this because this happens more than we'd like to hear about. And hopefully by talking about it, we can prevent other people and kids and teenagers from getting bit. So what to do around a fearful dog? I'm sure you all have either your own dog or a friend's dog or a family member's dog who's just really fearful or easily startled by people. And it sounds, so let me talk about the human version, and then we'll talk about the canine perspective. So the human perspective is typically if there's a small child and that child's fearful, like we want to get down on their level, we want to get closer to them to show them that we're not a threat. We may talk in a higher pitched voice or a softer tone of voice. We may reach for them non-threateningly, but just, like maybe like a little, shoulder touch or something to just kind of help warm them up. And for some small children, that does work. For others, that can just be too much invasion of their privacy that makes them more unsure of that person. But from the canine perspective, there's a few different things I want to cover here. The first one is that space is respect. And this is the simplest canine communication. If you see an alpha dog walk into the room and walks like towards a pack of dogs that are playing, those dogs will stop playing and kind of part like the Red Sea so that alpha dog can walk through. It's a sign of respect. If a dog comes up for the first time to sniff another dog, remember space is respect. So it's okay for them to sniff the rump for a few seconds, but that lingering sniffing might cause the dog that's being sniffed to growl at the sniffer because, again, it's an invasion of that space. It's kind of like if a friend was to introduce me to you. I'm a hugger. I like to hug people. Initially, I'll shake hands with you, but by the end of the conversation, if I feel like we're getting along pretty well and we have similar thought processes, and like, I'm a hugger, I'm going in for a hug. But then let's say I didn't let go and it was like, okay, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. You're like, this lady's crazy, get off of me, right? Space is respect for humans too. We just kind of overlook it for dogs because theirs is much more sensitive than ours. So So first off, space is respect. So the teenager did bend over towards the dog, so invading that respect. The other thing is a towering complex, right? So dogs' sense of ownership is very clear in their mind that if I was a dog and let's say I'm touching a different person, not myself, because my husband's not here to pick up. And I touch myself to a dog. Can you guys see my finger on my shoulder here? That simple touch of my finger is me saying I own this person. So for a dog, if you've ever seen them play, and playing is learning. So I'm not saying that if you see a dog do one of these things that dog's being a jerk or a dominant dog, but they should be respectful about it. Meaning if they do a dominance play, they should do it because it's practice, right? Like, okay, I'm doing it. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. You get me now. You get me. And that's fair play, just like with kids, right? It's okay to give and take as long as there's a give and take and not just a take. And so for a dog, you might see them do what's called leaning or towering over another dog. And that's when the dog was up and they're leaning on another dog, or even putting their nose on the back of another dog. So just come up and put their nose and kind of lean into that dog. And that's that dog owning the other dog. And that could be a playful invitation of like, I'm getting you, or you're going to get me. And the other dog could come, and play back. Or it could be the beginning of a dog fight. If that dog was not being respectful, or the dog that it was leaning on was not well balanced, they could be like, excuse me, you're trying to own me, and then a dog fight. So towering. So when the teenager went in, he leaned over the dog. So he leaned into the dog's face and then over the dog, or towards the dog. So he may not have been directly on top of the dog, but it was still like, here's a dog, here's my dog face. And the teenager went like this. You see how it's kind of like that frontal assault almost, right? The dog's thinking, oh my gosh, he's coming to get me. And so that bite was a reactive bite. So for fearful dogs, don't do that. Don't lean into their space. I had a client several years ago. It was a beautiful Cane Corso named Howie. And he had bitten her roommate. And so she couldn't get a trainer to come out because they didn't trust him because it was Cane Corso. So I came out to do an in-home consult with Howie, and he, to me, seemed unstable, but not truly aggressive where he wanted to harm somebody. And so we were talking about the circumstances about biting the roommate and what happened. Long story short, she just got Howie off of a family on Craigslist, so she doesn't really know his background, and he was very fearful of new people. So the roommate was a newbie. Everybody was a newbie at this point. And she thought, well, if I could just get him to take a treat from me, he'll like me. And so she actually cornered unknowingly. She didn't purposely do this. It was just the circumstances that happened, just not being mindful of our surroundings. She cornered Howie literally into the corner of the room and was trying to give him a treat. Again, she wasn't jabbing at him or like opening his mouth and shoving it down his throat, but she was very persistent in that if he would just take this treat, he'd be my best friend. And that's not how it works either. Because one, a dog that's stressful doesn't want to eat. They're not hungry. Their stress mechanisms are like fight or flight. Nutrition isn't one of those things. So a stressful dog doesn't generally want to eat. And then again, feeling that sense of being cornered, how he thought he had no escape route. You guys, I'll let you guys guess the right word there. My husband's not here to do it for me. So fight or flight. He couldn't flight, right? He couldn't flee the scene because he was cornered. And so his only response was to bite this lady to get her to back up. And so he did bite her hand. She didn't need stitches. So if you guys know a Cane Corso, it's an Italian Mastiff. They're pretty big. Howie was small. He was about 90 pounds at the time. He was still a puppy. But he could have inflicted much more harm than just some scrapes on her hand. So again, it was just bad circumstances. He now has a bite record because the roommate called animal care, I think, and it got kind of a big deal, all because he was just put in an unfortunate situation. So fearful dogs, be very mindful of their space. Do not go to them, okay? Let them come to you. Definitely don't tower over them. Never so I'm gonna get up here. So if I'm a dog, and let's say you guys in the camera are a dog, right? If I come at you like this, and I just keep coming at you, your instinct is to want to pull away. Like, whoa, back up there, stay away. But if I want to come and talk to you, and I kind of come with like the sideways approach, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? It's a lot less threatening. So, kind of lead with your shoulder, come on from like a sideways approach instead of a front-on approach. And the other thing to keep in mind too, is that some fearful dogs are fearful when you're front on, But as soon as your back is to them, they think it's fair game, right? Like, you can't stop me, I'm gonna bite you. So never turn your back to a fearful dog either. So remember that shoulder entry, coming at the dog sideways, or even approaching the dog if you can from its side, not behind them. You don't want to stay within the parish, but that kind of out to the front, off to the side, coming in that way is a lot less threatening to that dog. And then again, don't get too close, because space is respect. If you really love them and you want them to love you, you need to respect their space. And so what I do when I do consultations for fearful dogs is, when I know the dog's not super fear aggressive that it's going to attack me, because that's less fear and more dominance aggression, is I sit on the floor. I sit on the floor so that I'm like not towering on the couch, not towering by standing, but sitting on the floor. I purposefully slouch my shoulders a little bit, so my body language still is, very assertive. I kind of slouch a little bit on purpose, and I never look at the dog. Never make eye contact, because one, I haven't earned that dog's permission to make eye contact, and it's already in such a fight or flight mindset, because stress, right? Stress, cortisol gets released into the bloodstream. It's stress. It makes us want to be like, oh God, what do we do? Do we run? Do we fight? What do we do? So by making eye contact to a dog, you're telling them, I know you're there. I know where you are, and I know where I can get you. And that's not your intent at all, but that's what they see. Oh my gosh, you're looking at me. They know where I am. They could get me at any second. I don't know what to do. I can't hide now because they already know where I am. But if you don't look at them, if you have to look towards them, look at their bottom. So look at their butt, and try not to make that eye contact. So just kind of look in their general direction. You don't even have to look at the butt. Just look in their direction. You can look over them or next to them, but don't look directly at them. So sitting, corner, remember, keeping your shoulder to them. It's kind of like, hey, it's a lot funner than this way, leaning into the dog. So shoulder to them, never put your back to them, never be front on. So if the dog walks in front of you and comes up to sniff you, that's fine, because that was their choice to come front on. But generally, you're going to see them come up from the side, and most likely kind of from the back up. So never let them be directly behind you. So if they keep walking behind you, I would just kind of scoot a little bit on the floor, or lean your back against the couch to win-win, because they can't get behind you. And then just sit there. And that first time you meet this dog, you may not even touch it. It's okay. Because to that dog, you're their new favorite person, because you respected them like nobody else had ever done before. You made them feel safe, which nobody else has ever done before on that initial meeting. You made them not feel threatened. You calmed that flight or fight response, right? Because you didn't add fuel to the fire, right? You didn't keep pushing those boundaries. So the best thing to do with those fearful dogs is not to touch them. If they come up to you, what do? Well, you most certainly don't take your hand up and touch the top of their head, right? Because remember, I talked about this ownership, right? My finger on top means I own you. Maybe go under their chest right here in the front, or maybe scratching right here or the side of their ear, but never go like this, okay? Because that's going to get you another fear response, whether that's fleeing or fighting, because they think you're going to attack them. So very calmly go to the side or come under the front. If the dog walks away, don't stop it. Don't pull a collar back. Don't reach for it. Just say, thanks for letting me touch you, even if it was quick. Be respectful of that dog. And you'll see that if you ignore it when it walks away, it'll come back for more and more and more. And then you're going to have a new best friend. So take it slow with fearful dogs. Don't push them. Don't, sorry, I was reading a comment, got sidetracked. But don't push those boundaries too fast, okay? So if you have a dog, so hey, Haley, thanks for joining us. So everyone does this to my dogs, even my shepherds, even when I say get back. And so what I always tell people is, because people, okay, there's a couple different sides to this. Me as a person, I don't want to be the person that says no to another person. So if they're like, can I pet your dog? I'm like, no, never, because I just feel like that's mean. However, we have to advocate for our dogs if they are fearful. And so it's our job to say, I would love for you to pet them, but they're not ready for it right now. We're actually training and working on some things. Do you think you could just maybe wait till next time so they'd have a little bit more confidence first? And then it's not so like final. And maybe next time they come over and your dogs still aren't ready, and you say, hey, you know what? I thought they'd be ready, but it's taking a little bit longer than I thought. Could you do me another huge favor and not touch them? You can even share this video on your page so that all your friends can see it, maybe tag them in it, because it's super important, because I'm sure your friends don't want to come over and traumatize your dog. That's not the intent. They just love dogs and they want your dogs to love them. And so this is the best way to do it. Yes, it's slower in an instant gratification world. It is a little bit painful for us to take things slow because we're so used to that instant results. But take things slow and you'll see a lasting relationship. I always tell people, you got to wine and dine them before you take them home, you know? And so it's the same thing with dogs that are fearful. You got to kind of schmooze them a little bit. And so they warm up to you, and then you have a BFF for life. And usually these fearful dogs are the kind of dogs that, and I'll come back to this. Fearful dogs are the type of dogs that they're slow to like you. They're slow to build a relationship. But once they do, that relationship has been built on such a solid foundation that it's never going anywhere. Like they're going to be your best friend for life. And so shepherds, German shepherds, are extremely like this. So they're very slow to like people. They're born or they're bred to be naturally cautious, right? So people come over, their job generally is to protect, right? So people come over and they're like, do I need to do my job? Who are you? What are you doing here? Who said you could come here? Did I say you could come here? They're kind of control freaks, so they have like a mile a minute brain that's always thinking of other things, billion questions. So again, by having your friends not interact with them, not talk to them, and it's absolutely okay to put your dog in another room or to put them on a place command so they're away from the entryway and the path from the front door to the living room. Your dogs are kind of off to the side, out of reach. So your friends would deliberately have to make a detour, and that would give you time to intercept, right? To stand in the middle and say, hey, you know what? We're working on some stuff right now. And it'd be really helpful to me in my training if we could go sit down. And then in a little bit, I'll let my dogs come and say hi. And so again, it's letting your dogs come say hi. So your dogs are initiating that approach. The people aren't coming to them. And if your dogs don't come say hi, then just remind your friends, hey, you know, he didn't come over to say hi to you. Maybe he's not ready this time, maybe next time. And that's okay. So I'm going off on a lot of tangents here. I'm trying to keep my mind straight. So a couple different options for greeting at the front door. My Mastiff was not fearful, but she was a submissive wetter when she was a puppy. And people always wanted to touch her and talk to her because she was super duper cute. And so I literally had to put her behind me on a place cot and stand in front of her like I was her guard to make sure my friends wouldn't make eye contact. Because if they said, oh, you're so cute, she would just get all excited. She'd start wiggling. Oh, I can't hold the floodgates, even if she just went pee. And so I would literally be like dancing in front of her, like, no, you don't get to look at my dog. And it's always that initial greeting that's the hardest for dogs that are fearful or have submissive wetting. And so blocking that view, say, hey, come sit down in the living room. I'll be in just a second. So I kind of shoo them out of the kitchen, because that's where our door was, shoo them out of the kitchen into the living room. And then I would put my dogs on a place closer to the living room where I could see them, but again, not super close to my friends, and wait 5 to 10 minutes, maybe 15 the first couple of times, and see if they're calmed down enough, if they feel like, if they look disinterested in your company, that's when you let them off the place. If they're still whining and like trying to like come say hi, they're not ready. Let them relax, right? That stress hormone is probably really high. That fight or flight response, that's a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. Relax. And you might pick friends that you know are going to be helpful for this practice at first. You know, friends that are going to trust you, listen to you, and do what you ask. You know, and practice with them before you have the friends that are just like, oh, I don't care, every dog loves me. And then they go and invade your dog's space. And they mean well, but they just don't understand dog psychology and what that's really telling to the dog. 99%, okay, maybe not, 90% of dogs love people and love that initial interaction. The other 10% still like people, but it takes them a long time to love somebody and to build that relationship. So take things slow, super important. Thank you so much for sharing, Kim. We love all the shares. Yay. And so that's all I have for the topic today. Fearful behaviors, what not to do. Don't lean over them. Don't go in from the top to pet them. Don't invade their space. Let them initiate the contact by coming to you. Lower yourself, so maybe sitting on the floor or immediately sitting on a couch so that you're not towering over them standing up. Never turn your back to them. Never do a front-on approach, but maybe a shoulder approach. And you're going to be a winner, chicken dinner. All right, I hope that was helpful for you guys. Let me know if the poll worked for you or didn't work, or if you even see the poll, because I don't know how that works. It's the first time I'm doing it. And the topics for next week, so if the poll's not working, you can just let me know. We want to talk about either the difference between fear aggression and other types of aggression, because a lot of people mislabel fear aggressive. They'll say, my dog's fear aggressive, and then after we start talking with them, like, no, your dog's dominant aggressive, or your dog's territorial aggressive, or your dog's resource guarding. So there's a lot of different types of aggression. So let me know. And then the other option is Halloween tips for trick-or-treating when you have a fearful or a bitey dog. So a dog that nips people or acts like they're going to bite Gus, what to do for trick-or-treaters. So we'll give you lots of tips and advice for that. So let us know which ones you want to hear next week, and we will see you then. Bye. Thanks for joining us. All right.